right, we are back with another episode. I am super excited about this one because growing your team is one of the huge steps that people take as a part of the Photobooth ownership. Kat, I can't wait to pick your brain on your best tips on how to grow your Photobooth team. What would you say is one of the first indicators that it is time to hire your first attendant?
Oh, it depends how tired you are.
Yeah. So true.
I mean, some people, get into this business just to get extra cash, and that's great. I think if you know what your goal is and your goal is to stay that small and you're happy with that, then fantastic. You might never need to hire someone,
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what happens if you get sick, you have events going, and if you can't go, like, I know we're entrepreneurs and we're like, oh, we'll power through it. But there's sometimes you can't,
Yep.
As much as you want to, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
And for other people, I think they get tired, because this is one industry where when you start off your photo booth business, it's like 0 to 100,
Yeah, it's so true.
You get your first, your second lead, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're booked 30 events in a month, and you're going, when am I supposed to sleep again?
Yeah. Yeah.
The first few years are so exciting and just so I don't want to say it's easy, but it is. You know what I mean? I look back at my first few years and I'm like, man, I kind of wish I could go back to that sometimes, where it's the worst thing was how tired I was.
Right. Yeah.
How much my feet hurt.
Yeah.
So, but I was swimming in cash.
Yeah. So much. Yeah.
I'd look at my bank account. I'd be like, that's a lot of zeros. What am I going to do with this money? Buy more equipment, apparently.
Yep.
So, so I would always say the first hire I always suggest people to do is a booth attendant, someone to get you away from doing events, because there's only so many events that you can do before you're not really learning that much more new stuff, right?
Yep.
And I always will suggest to people to do their own events at first, right? Because
100%.
It gives you the ins and outs. You understand everything from start to finish, your client's experience, how to make things better, that kind of stuff. But then that is the first thing you need to train to get people out doing for you, because then that means you can do more jobs, right?
Yeah.
And then you can focus on doing the thing you probably do best, which is selling your own business.
Yeah.
And that's where you're going to start to see, really crazy growth, is when you start to delegate, and people are scared to do that. And I get it. It's hard.
It's your baby.
Hard. Yeah. It is hard to get other people. But I promise you, there's people out there who care equally as much about your business as you do. I can wholeheartedly say that every single person on my team, and I have 8 full-time employees.
Wow.
And I feel like every single one of them sometimes give more of a, can we swear on this? I probably shouldn't. They care more sometimes than I do.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice thing when you find that.
Wow.
But there are people out there who will do that. You just have to find the right people. But yeah, definitely the booth attendant. What was your first hire? That was mine. But what was yours?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Booth attendant. I got lucky and got 4 at once. Just because so my process was, the reason that prompted me was I was getting multiple booking requests for the same day, and multiple days of double. And I'm like, okay, I can't keep saying no, I can't keep saying no. And I knew I needed to do that, but also it terrified me, the thought of what happens if I break my leg? What happened? My anxiety was just I was in a tizzy.
Yeah.
Just what if I get sick? What if my kid gets sick? All of those things, the possibilities. I'm I don't want to let my clients down. Getting bad reviews is the last thing I ever want.
Yeah.
And so I'm I have to have a plan. I have to have a plan B. And I think in the industry, in your equipment, you should always have doubles, and that includes you. You should have a double of everything, including
way to put it. Oh my God. That is so true.
Yeah. And so the very first place that I found my attendance was, I thought, okay, who would I leave my baby with, my child with? Who would I trust to care for my child? I'm let me start looking for babysitters. Like
that's interesting. I've never heard this before.
Yeah, I'm like, let me look at care.com, because with care.com you have to have a background check. Like, you can't just be anybody to be listed on their site, and it's usually going to be like college students who are free on the weekends, who want to work on weekends, who want to make like extra $20 an hour and not be committed to something like every weekend, right? They want to have those like random jobs. And so I found somebody and interviewed them. I had them babysit my son while I did an event. and then I was like, okay, I like her. Like, let me just ask if she'd be interested in being an attendant. And she's like, oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm like, yes. I already know she's already passed a background check. She has a car, like, she's reliable. She showed up on time. She had a good time with my kid, Yeah. She's got good customer service skills. She texts well, like all of those kinds of like lists of things that I was looking for to represent my business and my company that I've worked so hard for. She did. And so then I was like, do you have any friends? And she's like, actually, like all of my roommates are interested. And I was like, freaking yes. This is amazing.
Oh my God.
So they're actually all in their like doctorate programs for like psychology. They're all like about to be freaking doctors. It's amazing. But I recently just hired another person from that like group. Like, now I have like 7 of them. But what they've told me, which is super interesting, is they love doing this because it's such a mental break for them from like their day to day, like being stuck in a classroom, like nose in a book. Studying really hard. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Like, there were things that I looked for, and someone who was like excited and passionate about being out and about with people is like one of the top things on the list. Yeah. So that was my kind of first hires. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that story. I've never heard anything like that before.
Yeah. How about you? What was your first hire and how did you get there?
So my first hire was a booth attendant as well. I'm trying to think, we just put out a job posting in a second shooters photography group.
Ooh, so smart.
Yeah, that's how I got my first one. She's now like a phenomenal wedding photographer, like very popular in the area. But she was with me for like 2.5 years, so employee number 1.
Wow.
Yeah, she was with me for a long time. Back then, though, it was like myself, my husband, and her. And so we had 3 people who could do events. Nice. And it came to points where it was like all 3 of us were out at the same time, and wow. It got to be like, oh, well, we need to hire more people. So I kept going to second shooter groups and hiring photographers, because back then I was so adamant that people needed to know about photography. Now I teach them, right? Now it's different. We're looking for like college students who have cars similar to, what you have. They're hungry for money. They don't get tired.
Yeah, exactly.
So like so many of our attendants will like drop off the equipment, drive back downtown, party till 3 a.m.
Wow.
And I'm just like, oh, to be 20 something again.
To be 22.
So that's now what we do when we're looking for our attendants. But now we do like right now we're in a mass hiring, and I've said to each one of my cities, I'm like, you guys need to hire 10 what we call primaries. So primaries are the people who, can do a photo booth from start to finish. They do the troubleshooting, everything. They should be able to, like, we send them out, they should be able to do it without having to contact us, right?
Yeah, nice.
So we need 10 of those in each city that we have. And then on top of that, we have something called a secondary, and they're just a backup, right? If something happens, if, the main person needs to like run out to go buy something or whatever, at least there's someone still with the photo booth.
100%.
If there's too many people, that one person is only doing the prints and the sharing, while the main person is like handling the guests. And our secondaries generally are like maybe people who don't have a car but have a really amazing personality, right? And so those are the 2 different people that we have. And so by the end of this hiring frenzy, we'll have an additional like 50 employees, which is crazy. But that's what'll get us through the busy season, right? Because I'm, really trying to make sure that my office staff aren't going to events anymore unless it's like the super big, massive, complex things. Other than that, like I just want those events handled by people. So booth attendants, definitely the first hire. And then I would say the second hire would be an admin person or someone to manage your leads, right? We get stuck in our businesses, you know,
working in. Yeah.
And it's really hard to get out. Like I can say now, you know, I mean, I run a 7-figure photo booth business and I spend like 15, 20 hours a week literally doing it. Sometimes it's more, right?
Yeah.
It depends. It really does depend on like what's happening. Sometimes like during our busy season, like, yeah, I get in the weeds of it. I'll go to events, but for the most part, like my day to day is really like, what's our next step? What's our next move? Like, where do we want to go? What's our next revenue goal? Who do we need to hire? You know, that kind of stuff. And the fun stuff that I want to do, which is the creative direction of things, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to do that without 8 other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's my reality, right? I know other people who have 1 employee and do the same thing, right? And so it just really depends on what you want your structure to be. But the things that you do repetitively day to day, like answering, you know, clients' phones, messages, their emails, their quotes, all that kind of stuff, that's stuff that you should be able to delegate out, you know, so that you can really focus on what matters. Yeah.
Or even like setting up really good systems to where it's all automated for you. Yes. I know you mentioned it in one of our past episodes on how you have complete workflows where there are some clients who you don't even like speak to because it's all in a workfloa.
Yeah. And they still book, you know, like, I just don't want to spend the time on and effort on them because I know that our close ratio actually became better when we automated it, which is the crazy thing to me. So now we're always looking at like, how do we make it just a little bit better, right? To get people to actually close without us having to hire another human being to manage these you know, these leads that are coming in. And that's what I'm focusing on now. Like I've realized that your team gets to a certain point where when you add people, it really disrupts like the, what do you call it? The symbiotic relationship of the environment, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and so after a few failed attempts to hire additional people into our group, we've kind of decided we're going to keep our group this size, right? We have abilities to streamline our workflows even more so that we're really focusing on what we want to do and not focusing on just adding more bodies, because adding more bodies doesn't always mean more productivity, right? So
it's true.
Yeah, automating as much as you can, even when you're hiring people, is going to allow you to do a lot more with a lot less, right? Yeah. And you can automate 90% of your business, you know? Yeah. Like the amount of systems I pay for is insane.
Seriously. So for those listening who are maybe just like starting out or maybe are like at that point where they're like feeling stretched and like they are interested in hiring, what would you say are some of the things they should have in place before they do that?
Oh my goodness. SOPs. And if you don't know what an SOP is, standard operating procedure, it's just a step-by-step guide on how to do everything in your business, right? Yep. And this is for everything. How you answer emails, you know, what you think is common sense to you is not common sense to other people.
Lesson number 1. Yeah.
Like, so the fact, oh my God, so many stories. Yeah. I had this one employee that I hired who didn't, and I don't know what happened in the school curriculum, but they thought that 3 periods is how you ended every sentence.
Oh no.
So everything they sent out, instead of being like a period and then a space and then a capital letter, was ... Everything ended in ... And I was like, oh my Lord. Like,
wow.
I had to write that out. We don't finish emails in ... or like use of emojis, like what emojis are okay. You know, there's some emojis that are just not okay to use anymore, and you would never know if you don't know, you know?
Exactly.
So writing everything down is super important. There's one app that I absolutely love. It's called Scribe How, and it's free. So you can download it on your Chrome browser, and anytime you go to do something that's super repetitive, as long as it's done in a browser, you can turn on Scribe How, and Scribe How literally takes screenshots and writes out your action. So click here.
Oh, so cool.
Do this, right? And so then as you're doing it, you're recording the entire thing, and then you name it. How to, I don't know, send a shipping label or something like that. saves it into your directory, and you have an SOP there on how to do that. And it'll even like record your passwords and logins if you want to.
Wow.
But as you're doing these things, especially the things you hate doing the most, write those out and have those be the first thing that you delegate to somebody else. But when you hire someone, you should be able to be like, here's a checklist of all the things you need to do, right?
Yep.
In order to onboard yourself.
Yeah.
And here are the things you need to learn, right? So when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want a quote for this many hours for a photo booth, you should have an SOP. It's like how to quote a photo booth, how to quote extra hours in your photo booth.
Yeah.
All these things should be written out, and your entire business needs to be documented, because that's
So
what you
true.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What would you say are some mistakes that you see with photo booth owners when they're hiring and they're making those first hires?
Hiring is something that takes a lot of learning, right?
Yeah.
The biggest thing is that you need to hire slow and fire so damn fast.
Yeah.
I think as business owners, we care too much about the people, and they don't care the same about our business. And we're not seeing that, right? Like it's hard to fire people. And, but at the end of the day, you're doing them a disservice by keeping them.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that many people who I have fired from my business for whatever reason have gone on to flourish, because guess what? They weren't built for my business. They were meant to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
And, Brandon has helped me with this one a lot too. I go to Brandon for a lot of things because he's like 10 steps ahead of where my business is. Right? But, he also told me this. He's like, fire fast, because it really hurts your team when you have somebody who's not pulling their weight, and that makes them angry. So you're pissing off like the good employees that you have, because you don't want to hurt the feelings of this one random person who isn't giving you the same respect, know?
100%.
So, take your time.
and also, like, I would say make sure that when you're hiring somebody that enjoys being around people.
Oh my God, yes.
That was my most recent person that I had to let go. They're like, actually, I don't enjoy being around people. I'm like, why did you try and sign up? Why did you sign up for this? Like, what happened here? They're like, yeah, it's really draining to be around people. And I'm like, what? This is not the right place for you, So making sure you're doing your due diligence too, and like ensuring that if they are like introverted, that they are able to still, participate and be like a joy to be around, and that they're not going to be negative and complain and, drain your business and drain your team too. Like, cause, that's also not good.
No. Definitely not. Oh my God, introverted people going to events, please.
Listen, then I consider myself an introvert, but like I love going to events, and I love just being around people and seeing people have a good time. Doesn't mean I want to be a part of, like, I don't want to be in the middle of the room like dancing, but I love watching, like it's fun to be on the sidelines, but yeah, when you're hiring, what would you not expect your team to handle? Like, what would you not expect to have them be in charge of and take ownership of?
I mean, it depends on what they're getting hired for, right? If anything, I'd probably flip that and say, when I hire someone, I'm very clear on what they have ownership on, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I try to set rules and, SOPs in place to give them as much freedom as humanly possible. So, we set out guidelines like this is, discounts, for example. You're allowed to discount this much maximum. Anything over that needs to go to, like, you need to ask me and you have to build a case. And this is how I want you to build the case to let me know the information I need to know, right? But at the end of the day, every single person on my team has a number, right? They have a goal, a KPI that they have to hit every single week, or at least strive to hit it, right? as a team, we have goals and KPIs that we need to hit. And we all work together to do that, right? Everyone knows what they do. Like my designer does design, and they're in charge of making sure that the entire design process is seamless from the client perspective, the event coordinator, so internally, externally. And so they know that that's what they're always working towards, right? My event coordinator is the same thing. Like they need to make sure that the client experience is so amazing that these people keep coming back to us. And that is the one thing that we always get is like, people are like, even if they can't afford us, they're like, I need to work with you at some point because your service is fantastic, your product is fantastic, and I'm going to keep this. And I know I can't afford it now, but I will be able to afford it next year.
Yeah, so cool.
So laying that out, making sure that people understand what they're responsible for and that that is their thing to have ownership on. I really do try to like let them do their thing, right?
Yeah.
Until I really need to step in, and if I need to, then I'll help. But
yeah. Yeah, that's super inspirational. I think I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm far from having a team that size and your size, obviously. Like you have 10 years of experience in this. For those that are kind of just starting out or in their couple of first years and they've got a couple booth attendants, would you say the next steps are just to build up on your SOPs and figure out ways to systematize your business so that you're working less, in it?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we did it so much so that like even our training modules are now on video, which I turned into a course, right? Because
there you go.
And like, that's how much we've done it now. Every single time when we hire people, they go through Photobooth Mastery. They need to get certified before they can go do events. And so that's the extent of how much we have systemized everything. So just start writing it down. Start small. Don't get overwhelmed. One thing a day.
Yeah.
Just do one thing a day and that's it.
I love that. That's awesome. That's great tips. We have a takeaway for you guys.
Yes.
We have a sample job posting. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this is a post that like the job posting that I've used for my Photobooth attendants when I first started out. So our Photobooth attendant posts now are like probably more than what most people need. So this one I used for years, probably like 5 or 6 years to hire attendants. And so I'm going to give you guys that one. You guys can copy, paste it, change it however you want. It's a Canva link as well. So it'll just help you get started onto what to look for.
Perfect. Oh, that's so exciting. This is going to be so helpful. Thank you so much. This is so great. Like being able to grow your team is such a huge step. For our owners and for people just starting out. So this is super exciting.
Thanks so much, Nicole. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.